I'm Jen Kilborn,
And I'm Melissa Klug.
and you're listening to the Pro Organizer Studio podcast.
We want to broaden the horizons of savvy businesswomen in the organizing industry and give you the confidence you need to grow the business that you want.
With strategies designed specifically for professional organizers, we hope to inspire you wherever you are on your journey of entrepreneurship. So we're so happy you're here with us. Now let's get started.
Hey, Pro Organizers, it's your podcast host, Melissa, and this is part 2 of my conversation with Rachel Rosenthal talking about press. I wanted to divide this into 2 different conversations, but put them out in the same week. In this conversation, we are talking about, okay, I'm sold. You have sold me on doing press. It's important, but how do I do it? What does the pitch process look like? How do I get it out there? All of those things. This is the very important second part of the equation. But what I really, really hope is that the first part of our conversation, and I've gotten texts from a couple of my friends who are organizers who are like, all right, I was a little bit skeptical, but I listened to the first podcast and I'm in on this. I just hope that you have gotten some inspiration to go out and even try to pitch one thing. Maybe it's a local podcast. Maybe it's a big TV station in your area. I would absolutely love for you to go out and decide, hey, I'm going to go pitch someone. The other thing I'll tell you, this is the kind of thing that once you do it the first time, it's nerve-wracking. It's scary. It's, especially if speaking isn't your thing or, like Rachel discusses how she's actually a pretty shy person. Once you get used to it, though, and you get one thing under your belt, then it's easier to do the second thing. It's easier to do the third thing. And then all of a sudden you see you're doing the 50th thing and it's really great and you're happy that you did it. So get out there, rip the Band-Aid off, find something fun. I actually pitched someone on being on the podcast. I sent an email out to someone that I had been recommended to be on the podcast, and I sent her a pitch to be on the podcast. And she emailed back, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, but I've never been on a podcast before. I am nervous. I don't know what to do. Just take it easy on yourself, and I promise you, you will be able to go do it. Okay, as I said in the last podcast, I met Rachel at the How To Summit last year. And a lot of you that listen to the podcast were there because I talked to a lot of podcast listeners, but I think that it would be awesome if a whole bunch of us showed up in Austin, Texas in September. So the How To Summit is open for early registration. It's $395. That will go up on January 31st. I would love to have people come to the How To Summit. I will be there. I will be speaking. I'm so excited. And I would love to meet so many organizers there. Hit up howtosummit.org for that early registration bonus. And then email me hello@proorganizerstudio.com if you're going to be there so that I can put you on my list of people that I want to meet. All right, so it's our second interview with Rachel Rosenthal. Let's get going. Tell us a little bit about the pitching process, because I think that's probably the thing that will stop most people. They're like, okay, cool, I'm sold on this, but how exactly do I go about it? Can you talk a little bit about that process?
And so we'll talk about this later, but I have a press course where I give you some templates on how to actually do it, because I do feel like that stops people and I don't want it to. And especially because people think I'm not the best writer and all that. Just remember, whoever it is, writer, TV producer, all these people, they get hundreds of emails a day. So the point of this is, number one, cutting through all of that. And how do you do it? And number two, writing pitches that are timely, that have interesting topics. And again, for the organizing world, because obviously I know that the best, we don't have a ton of topics that are like related to world news events. That's just not something that happens. Like, we can't comment. I mean, I've tried. I just did a story with some celebrities, and that comes in once around a moon. We're not commenting on world events with organizing. It just doesn't fit for the most part. So you're creating the story. And so you have to be a little bit creative. So number one, I would go back and look at what has been published on that publication first, online, in a magazine, in TV, and say, how are these publications actually writing, reading, whatever the thing is? How are we hearing about organization in that form? Because that's going to help you with your pitch, because you don't want to be pitching a local magazine and they do a lot of top 10 lists, for example, 3 reasons why you should get your garage organized before the winter. You don't then want to be pitching something that doesn't have a number in it or doesn't relate to the way that they're actually writing. Because if you then go against the grain, there's more chance that they're probably not going to pick you up. Again, that doesn't mean that they always do it the same way, but that's just a way to start to say, okay, how was that story written? And that's how I can start to do my pitch. When I'm pitching, so I'm first looking at that. I'm first looking at the last time they did maybe a story about that. Again, I'm talking about an online magazine. When is the last time they did organizing your kitchen to get it ready for a holiday? If it's something that they've done recently, then you have to think about it. That's probably not something that they're going to pick up again unless it's really seasonal and there's so much time in between or so much has gone on in the world that you can then talk about it because publications and places don't want to repeat stories. So think about that and then make it as succinct and interesting as possible. These people don't want to read 3 pages on how to get a garage organized. It's like a 2 to 3 sentence. How do you get your garage organized? And what's your interesting or what's your specific spin on how you're going to do it versus the next professional organizer that's going to email them 2 days later about organizing their garage.
And I would just like everyone to think about, by the way, we should all be thinking about this all day, every day. It's about them. So whether that is a potential client that is coming to you, we're going to talk about how we are going to help them. It's not about us, it's about them. And especially with these publications, any publication, any sort of press, how are you going to get them viewers, get them readers, get people interested in what they have?
Remember, it's a business on the other side, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a TV show, whether it's a blog. All those things are still a business. And so it isn't about you. Yes, you're going to go on and you're going to have, if let's say TV, organizing expert under your name, professional organizer, when they do the bio online, that's great. And that's press and a way to give you exposure and a link to your website or a link to your Instagram, whatever it is. But in the end, they're bringing you on, just like you said, to help their business. And so you need to show in the pitch, you're going to help their business. That's not to say you can't talk about you and your expertise, but in that pitch, it is not about you. It is about how you're going to help their client, their consumer, their reader, their listener. And then you're showing why you can give that expertise.
Yeah. I will just throw in here a couple personal stories. As someone who gets pitched a lot, I get pitched as a podcast creator. And what I will tell you is the best story ever was someone who pitched me. I couldn't make this up if I actually tried, but it was a PR person that said, I have XYZ. She's an expert in aquatic weed control in ponds and lakes. And I wish I could. And I go, it's literally called the Pro Organizer Studio Podcast. So that one is particularly egregious, but the reason I want to tell this story is I get a ton of pitches from people who will say, I love the Pro Organizer Studio podcast. I loved your recent episode on blah. It's a cut and paste thing that they have just pulled from the internet.
Yep.
They have not actually done any research whatsoever on the podcast. And then they proceed to pitch me something that is ludicrous, that has nothing to do with professional organizing. Or I will have people that pitch me that say, I'm Julie, I'm a professional organizer. I want to talk about how much I love organizing and the benefits of being organized. That is not something that my audience cares about. My audience already knows the benefits of being organized. What you're saying is really important.
Yeah.
Is you have to do the research on what you're pitching and whether it actually makes sense to that audience.
100%. And I mean, people just in regular emails, like they're spelling your name wrong. They're not, I mean, look at those things. Again, you don't have to be an English major. I went to law school. I'm like not known for writing pitches, right? I'm learning all of this on my own. But do your research. And yes, it might be time consuming on the front end, but it is going to save you so much time on that back end because you're actually going to be pitching things that might make them interested versus them looking at the email going, what? Were you going to talk about a zoo or whatever the thing is?
Right.
No sense. And you just wasted all your time doing that pitch. And so I wouldn't be discouraged if you, number one, don't get a response from your first initial pitch, or it's a no at that point. Because number one, if it's a no, I actually think that's great because then you can go back to them and be like, hey, remember in, December, I pitched you about X, Y, or Z. And then you come back and be like, okay, well, here's a new spin on number 2 of the 4 that I pitched you. This is why I think it's relative now or recent now, whatever. But I think a no is not a no forever. I always think of a no, unless they're really saying like, no forever, but I think a no is just, okay, great. It isn't going to work this time because you have no idea the stories they're working on, the articles they're working on. You just have no concept about that. And so I had to learn that for myself. Don't take it too personally. I feel like we're in show business, when I
Yeah.
tell people about this, but it's just like, it's not personal. They have their own stuff going on. They have editors that are telling them what stories to write. It's not personal. Just like when a client might not necessarily choose you and goes with a different organizer, or you said no to a certain, it's not personal. And so I just want people to build like a thicker skin, because I know it sounds like a lot of work to go and do the research and write and wait for the response, but it pays dividends. Trust me. It really helps with clients coming to you and your credibility. And then I don't know about most people who are listening to this, but my clients talk with other clients, and
Yep.
that's how, and I've lasted for 15 years with a lot of referrals. And so you just have to continue to do good, be in these places, be where people can quote unquote see you. And that also helps you continue to have a long list of clients, continue that business going. And I do think that I know press has been that number one thing for me. I
We
don't
can't.
it as much on Instagram. I don't do all these other
Yeah.
things because of press.
Well, and we cannot. I mean, I work with pro organizers all over the place, as you do too, and referrals continue in our hyper connected online 24/7 world. Personal word of mouth referrals are still a ginormous part of so many people's businesses.
I mean, I feel like a dinosaur every time I say that, but I mean, like when I started, there was no Instagram. Like I
Right.
had a newsletter, and I'll actually tell you the story really
You're
quick.
like an OG organizer, by the way.
I'm old. Okay. That I know I call myself that. And it's so funny to hear other people say that, but I've been around for a very long time. There wasn't social media. There wasn't this connection of online, which is so amazing now that we have this and we get to meet other people and connect with them online, but we didn't have that. And so I've just always done the referral thing. And this is again coming from someone who's shy, doesn't like networking, whatever.
Yeah.
But anytime I'm talking to someone with the press, I'm not becoming friends with them, but like I'm becoming friendly with them. I'm providing them, I'm doing good work so that they do continue to talk about me or come back. Or let's say there's another writer in their office doing a story on organization, and that person in the team meeting is like, you know what? Once had this organizing expert 3 years ago. Why don't you call her? Because was great. I want that to come out of that writer's mouth, and that continues and helps with my longevity and is referral in that way. And then the client, it's all connected. But really quick, a story so I, again, started when there was no Instagram. And so I did a newsletter. I had a very small newsletter list, and there happened to be a Post reporter on my newsletter list. And people at the How to Summit heard this story, I think, in one of the groups. But I wrote a newsletter that I was pregnant with identical twins and, going to go be organizing for them, blah, blah, blah. And she wrote me back and she was like, can we come do a photo shoot at your house when they're 6 weeks? And I was like, 6 weeks from
Oh, that
having,
sounds great.
I mean, amazing. Like,
What could possibly go wrong?
and so I was like, well, could I wear black? I've just had twins and it's only been 6 weeks. And she's like, nope, color. We're only going to take a picture from the waist up. I was holding the girls in front of my chest and like on my waist. And she's like, don't worry, it'll be great. It then got picked up by the Associated Press, was in hundreds of full, and then she's like, "Oh, well, I didn't have control over the picture getting." It was the whole full-fledged picture, which again, as any new mom knows, like that's really not what you want to be taking pictures of, like your whole body 6 weeks after in breastfeeding, whatever. It was just a mess. But that article got picked up in hundreds of different papers. The Washington Post printed it. It was a picture that I've never seen. It was below the fold. I don't even think they do those large pictures anymore. Like it
Yeah.
was centerfold in the picture. It was, and I got calls left and right. And the article was about organizing for twins. So it wasn't just twin moms calling me. It was all these moms calling me because they're like, oh, the way that they presented, like it sounded like I had my stuff together, right? I'm
Right.
organizing and having a mom for twins. So people want what I have. That story from my newsletter to the Washington Post. And then I did numerous stories with her afterwards because it was such a big hit for the paper. I mean, I was so grateful. And I just had to say to myself, like, okay, it doesn't matter how you look. It literally doesn't matter how you look.
It does not. It really doesn't. That's the truth. And we're all our own worst enemies on that, which
Right.
is a whole other podcast for a whole other time. But like, yeah, no one's looking at you as much as you think you're looking at you is the
No.
biggest thing. But I think your point too is, and what we cannot ever know is how many tentacles something is going to have.
Right. Just have
So
no idea how it's connected
yes,
to, I mean, and that's why I'm always like, as much as I can, yes, and doing the best I can with everything. It might not be the topic that I really want to be talking about, but I'm going to give it
sure.
my all because you just never know. That producer might go to this show. This person might now work for this, and I've had people move all over and still contact me. You just never know what's going to happen from it. So I'm like, do your best at all times, whenever you
Yeah,
can.
I love it. If you could try to give people some inspo if they're just listening to this and like, oh, this just like hurt me just a little bit, like it's really scary. Like, can you just tell us like, hey, go out and pitch 2 publications, or what would you tell people?
I would say number one, figure out who your ideal client is
Okay.
before you start anything. So after you figured out your ideal client, figure out, let's just say 5 places where they are. What are they reading? I mean, it could be a variety. I personally would do a variety of things, whether it's watching, listening, reading, online, in print, anything. Pick those 5 and do great pitches to those 5. And do not do the same pitch to all 5.
Great.
Right? Because you don't want to be pitching the same thing and then 2 of them hit, if that is the case. And then just don't be discouraged if 0 of those 5 come back to you and say, we want to do a story now. We want to have you on the podcast now. Don't take it personal. Go back, regroup, maybe rejigger things of how you've written it or who you're looking at, and go back and continue to pitch. I
Yeah.
promise you it will pay off. It will give your business a huge, huge help both in credibility and your bottom line.
Well, and I love the don't get discouraged, because you are going to have some things that it maybe isn't a fit, and that is okay. It's about finding the right place that is a fit and just the right timing. Sometimes it is just an absolute luck scenario and it has nothing so that no is not, like you said, it's not a no forever. It's a no just for that moment.
Right. And I will say, because I just was thinking about this, like press also includes businesses, right? So we have local businesses that do newsletters to their employees and all of that. Those are great clients. Whatever these places are, they all have people who work for them and newsletters. And so if your ideal is working at that business, go to those newsletters or go to those businesses and pitch to see, do you have a newsletter I could write for? Is there something I could be talking about? Because that's where your client is. And press is not just magazine, podcast. There are also businesses that have newsletters, companies that have newsletters, local bloggers. We didn't even talk about that. Local bloggers where you could write an article for it. There's so much opportunity that I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I really want people to hone in on those places.
And that's a great point too, because as someone who is a content creator, it is exhausting to be on the content creation wheel all the time. And so as much as possible, when you think about all of the, like you're giving some really, really great ideas of things you can go pitch for people that would love to have something that is pre-made, ready to go for them.
I mean, it's like an easy yes. I always want it to be an easy yes for someone. And then that's an easier way to get your message out, to get what you want to be talking about out. And so again, like you said, people are tired. If you
Yeah.
if you could be constantly blogging or pitching, or I can't imagine. And so you are doing a service for these people, and you are bringing content to their audience.
Yeah.
That their audience wants to then hear, read, whatever, see. And so you're helping them do their job better.
Yeah.
So that's a plus.
It is. And this is a great time, I think, to concentrate on building some of these things in your business that, you may not have time to concentrate on other times of the year. So tell us a little bit about, so you've designed a press course where you teach all of this. So tell us a little bit about what is going on.
Yeah, so it's the power of press. I did it after many years of people asking me how I did it. And again, as I mentioned, I don't pay for press. And so it is different modules, and it's going to teach you where to look for press, how to look for press. It's going to give you templates. It is going to literally give you the roadmap, because I want to provide this for I'm really passionate about doing this for, whether it be for other professional organizers, other people who have clients and service businesses. It's a must. And so I'm giving your audience $100 off, and you can, there's running in the show notes, but just have to use POS in the code, and I'll provide you guys with a link. but I am so excited about it. It gives you 100,000 worksheets, I feel like, to actually do the work because like you, I absolutely agree. When you're not busy with your business and or taking time out of your business to work on this will then grow your business tenfold. And so if you are slower and or you're writing in your schedule to do a course like this or to take the time to learn about it and how to actually do it from someone who has mastered it, I feel like it is going to pay off in the end because without it, you're just going to keep doing the same thing and seeing other people get the press and have their businesses grow and feel like, I mean, that's at least how I was when I first started until I actually did it. And again, I will say I'm shy. I don't have a business or press or marketing, whatever background I went to law school. So this is all on my own. And I really give you as much information as I can that's in my brain for this because I really feel passionate about people getting press for their business.
It's always great to get the cheat codes from someone who has already done all of the work. Like one of the things I say is I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. Like that's you have done all of the work and it's done.
And I will say the landscape is competitive now, in terms of press and all of that. And so I want these people who are taking like you get it, and you can get it. And again, people do it on their own. That's great. But I'm always one of those people like you. I've gone through the mistakes. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I want people to learn from my mistakes and just have the templates and go in and do it. And it gives you some ideas on what to pitch, how to pitch, places to pitch, all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited for everyone.
I feel like 15 years in media is like dog years though. Like you have way more experience than just 15. I mean, 15 years is a lot of experience, but like it's probably even more than that.
Yeah. I mean, my children are almost 16 years old. And so
Yeah.
that's I also know how long it's been. But yeah, it's been a long time. And the media landscape has also changed. But any of these techniques I feel like you could use. And I talk about podcasts, newsletters, and I give you ideas on all of that. But it has changed. But yet there are some things that are just so consistent. And now I'm working with brands who want me for my media exposure. And I do stuff for their media exposure because it has been so successful on the client end and my business end that I'm now working with. I've worked with for years, a ton of brands just on media for their products and services. So it works. It really works.
Well, and that's one thing that we didn't really touch on. But the other thing too is I will frequently tell people, what are your goals for your business? And if it's in-home local organizing,
Yes.
that is a segment that you can research and that's a segment you can work in. But also if you have aspirations in your organizing business to be bigger or to have a national audience or to write a book or whatever it is, whatever your ambitions are, if you really want to be an organizing influencer, because that is also a thing. Like there are other parts of your business that don't have to be in-home organizing that also you can expand into, and press is critical for those things.
100%. And that's why, and we talk about it in the course, like, what are your goals? There's a section for that. And we talk about it a little bit more because everyone's goals are not the same. And the press and where it's going to lead you is not going to be the same thing. So different podcasts, local, national, what you're actually wanting to do, you make a great point. It is not leading you all in the same direction. And so you have to be strategic about it. My goals have changed over 15 years. When I first started, it was very different. But you got to be strategic and just sit down and do it. And I know when you're running the business, there's no time and all of that. And I still do all my press myself. Even though I have a team, I'm always the one doing it because I'm so passionate about it. And I feel like no one can do it. And no one can be in my brain as much as I can be, but it's crucial. It's really crucial. And I feel like it can open so many different types of doors. Like you were talking about influencer, brands, podcast, whatever, podcast of your own, a book of your own, but you have to be smart about where you're actually, it's not throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something sticks.
Right. Well, where can people find you on the great big wide interweb?
So you can find me on my website, which is rachelrosenthal.co, or you can find me on Instagram at Rachel Organizes. And then hopefully I'll send you guys the link to the course and you'll get all the press and more. I'm really passionate about that. And if people need individual coaching, I'm available for that also, that you can see on my website around press. But I want people to try it and they'll get $100 off with your code and really hope that they'll dive into it. And I promise you it will be worth it.
This is one of those things that if one thing lands, right, it could totally, like you said, change the trajectory of your business, and it only takes that one thing, but knowing all of the pieces that go into it and being armed with that and knowing how to do it is really important.
Yeah.
So,
And then using that press like we talked about.
well, wonderful. Rachel, thank you so much. This was like 40,000 pounds of information, which is amazing. Thank you so much.
I am so happy to have been here. Thank you so much for having me and wishing everyone so much success and lots of press in their business.
One of the things that I love about talking to people who have, like you have organizing experience and you have all these other experience. It's not, you are not just like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to do press. You have done it for your own organizing business. And so that's why you know what you're doing.
I kind of do. I like to say I do.
Well, thank you so
for having-
much. Thank you so much again to Rachel for your time. You have really taught us a ton of stuff, and I am thrilled for so many people to get out there and get some cool PR. Just a couple of friendly reminders. If you use code POS, you will get $100 off of Rachel's course. If you are interested in learning a lot more and learning her exact pitch process, and the link for that will be in the show notes. And if you have any questions at all about our programs, our coaching, anything about the organizing industry, I would love to chat with you. My email is hello@proorganizerstudio.com. And sometimes people are like, oh, tell Melissa and Jen hi. It's my email. I answer all of them. So please just know it's really me that answers them. It's really me that reads them. And I would love to connect with you. Have a great day, organizers.